All right, cool. Welcome everyone to ACM Design's first flagship event of the year. This is I for Design, a design competition meant for beginner designers like yourselves. This is a week-long event, and we'll kind of go over the details of what to expect and who's behind the organization that runs this event, all the logistics that you need to know, and then finally end with a workshop to get you guys started. So with that being said, who's ACM Design? Like, who's behind this? Who's running it? So first things first, I'm Crystal. You're going to see my face pretty much for the most part this week, and I will be your main point of contact in case there are any point of difficulties. Like with the Zoom link, I'm so sorry, but thank you everyone for your patience as we navigate these issues. But yeah, if any issues arise, I'm your go-to person. Feel free to ping me on Discord or email or anything of the sort if you run into any issues. I'll be here all week, and I'll be helping you guys navigate what it means to become a designer. So ACM Design at UCLA is the organization that I'm a part of. We are a subcommittee of a larger organization called ACM at UCLA, and you can see all of our wonderful logos on the slide. We cover everything from cybersecurity to mobile development, diversity and equity within tech, AI, gaming, and for us specifically, we focus on design. I know it's like a very vague term, like what part of design. There's just so many aspects of design. Like this competition entails, we kind of cover UX, UI, and product design, as well as graphic design. We also do 3D design and a couple other aspects of design here and there. But I would say graphic design and UX, UI design or product design are kind of like the two avenues we usually cover the most. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to email us throughout the week. Brian, the email for ACM is in the speaker notes for the slide, so feel free to plug that into chat, please, just so everyone has it. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is the go-to contact for any of your issues. All the emails also are sent to my personal email, so feel free to ping me there as well. And we all should be smooth sailing from now on. Fingers crossed and knocking on wood. All right, so what is this event about? So like this says on screen, it is supposed to be a beginner-friendly design competition for students to bring together the design community so that we can learn and grow together and build our skills and hopefully support each other as we take on the route to becoming designers in the future. I emphasize beginner friendly here because that's what it's meant to be. This is actually supposed to be meant for students who are starting out in design and looking for project work to kind of like get started on and have something for their portfolio. It's meant for first years and second years who are just getting introduced to design. It's meant for transfer students who didn't necessarily know about design until coming to college, or maybe students like third and fourth years who are transitioning or pivoting in their career and want to focus on something new like design. So if you are someone who just learned about design and are kind of looking about different avenues on where to get started, or you're just looking to build your portfolio, or any kind of scenario that I mentioned where you're just starting out, this is supposed to be the event for you. So hopefully we designed it. We tried to design it so it's not intimidating at all. There's no like fear factor or intimidation, or there's shouldn't be that much pressure to perform well. Like this is a safe space to make mistakes and learn and grow. And we are here to support you as much as we can. That's our mission at ACM Design, is to serve everyone else and be there as like a resource point for mentorship, for learning skills and growing as designers. And that's what we hope this competition and this week-long event is about. All right, so the event theme for this week and this year is very important. I would ingrain this in memory. So it's, as you saw within our branding, it has to do with sunflowers. And we chose this theme because sunflowers are used as a reminder for people to strive and grow, they can survive harsh like weather conditions, but they can grow really tall and reach towards the sky. And so it has this idea of, reaching great heights, and if you put in the effort to do so. And the next point here, it talks about growing together as a design community. And we thought, it's like planty, it's kind of cute. And we chose this event theme because, we're all kind of starting out as designers. And I don't know about at different campuses across the nation. I see that there's a lot of people who are not from UCLA here, which is really great. But for us specifically, we see that there's like flowers everywhere. So like there's people kind of working on their own thing, but we're still trying to build that hub of designers, or like a strong community of designers. If you're someone who is looking for a place to get started or some place to turn to, here it's kind of like everyone kind of does their own thing. And if you're just getting started, it might be hard to know where you are trying to look to get started, and like who to talk to, what clubs to go to. And so that's what we mean by growing together as a design community. We want to bring everyone together to help each other out. And so hopefully we can do a little bit of that with this event. So keep this in mind. Everything in design happens for a reason, and so is mentioning this event theme. All right, big slide of lots of words. We'll break this down. This is the schedule of events for this week. So obviously today is the event kickoff event, and we'll end it with a workshop on design thinking or design processes. So for those of you who are just starting out and like, how do I think like a designer, or like what's the approach I want to take with like this prompt or with this event, that's what this workshop is going to be for today. Tomorrow, we're going to have a speaker Q&A event with two incredible student designers. One is like about to graduate, and so she'll have a bit more on like how to get work or how to get internships. And then another student is about a second year, so just getting started as well and just getting her foot in the ground. So for anyone who's interested in kind of asking about, how did they get to where they are now? How did they build their skills? Like how did they get projects and find internships, all that sort. Anything you have about starting out in design, I'd highly suggest checking out the speaker event tomorrow at 6. On Wednesday, we'll have another event talking about design trends. Should be a bit more fun and more relaxed, just getting to know what's happening in the industry and getting you a bit familiar with like the techniques that are being used in both graphic design and product design. And kind of getting you into like the mindset of like, okay, like this is how I can recognize design trends. And this is something that I like versus something that I don't like. Thursday, we'll have 3 sessions that are pre-recorded, just because scheduling is a bit hard on our end for these. So these 3 workshops will be an introduction to Figma. So if you have never used Figma before, perfect. If you are learning design software, is perfect. We'll send that out to you guys at the start of the day. Also how to prototype with using Figma. So one is like more design, like how do I navigate the interface? And one is like, okay, how do I start putting things together? And then the third one will be about how do I design using Figma in terms of graphic design, because believe it or not, a lot of our graphics and assets that we use at ACM Design are designed on Figma. So you can use Figma for both graphic design and product design. It is up to you. So we'll send those out. We'll send 3 of those out, and we'll send them to everyone. So if you're interested in either whichever, even if you sign up for one track, you can still view content for the other track too. If you're interested, we don't want to restrict you in your learning endeavors. And then you can also schedule live feedback for your projects or mentoring sessions in case you're kind of lost, or you want to check in and see like, okay, is this something that would be like feasible in actual design? Anything of the sort. Or mentoring, like I said, like if you're wanting to learn more about design or getting started, if you want to have like a one-on-one session with one of our officers, that is what Thursday is for. And then Friday, we'll have a full workday for you guys. So submissions are due at the end of the day. And if you still want to schedule like feedback or mentoring sessions, that will be available too. And for those feedback and mentoring sessions, we will send out a form for you guys like the day before it happens. So for Thursday on Wednesday, and then for Friday on Thursday. Saturday will be a judging day, and then towards the end of the day, we'll contact finalists and honorable mentions for the event finale about like what they need to do and in terms of presenting their project. And then Sunday, event finale event. Everyone who's been contacted will be presenting their designs and the work that they have. And then towards the end, we'll announce our winners. And that will conclude our week for I4 Design. And then all events will be recorded. Zoom links will be emailed out, but they'll be the same one. This one should be working for the rest of the week. And if anything changes, I'll email you guys or ping you. But they'll all be recorded, and we'll upload them on our YouTube channel for ACM at UCLA and send that link out when it's ready. Okay, so a bunch of links here, Brian, that you can post in chat. So be sure to just keep them, and then we'll also post them and email them out. So here's the YouTube link. There's also the Zoom link you can post there as well as like the Discord. Okay, that'll be after. Cool. Okay, I think that is it for this. Yeah, you can feel free to keep these links. We'll also email them out and ping them accordingly. All right, so all logistic stuff out of the way in terms of the events. I'm sure this is like the good stuff that you guys want to get to. So competition tracks, we have 2 tracks. One is for graphic design and one is for UX, UI, and product design. So a little bit of a different kind of paths that you can take. You can choose to explore either of them, but at the end of the day, your submission should just be for one track. So let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty details of like what to expect for each track. All right, so here are the prompts for each track. And again, we'll post these after the event as well, as a reminder, just so you guys have it with you. So for graphic design, so design a graphic, and then here are the dimensions for that graphic that showcases the event theme for this year. And so just to elaborate on this prompt, again, we'll also send out these slides if you need. The event theme has to do with sunflowers and growing together as like a design community, bringing people together, reaching your goals, and learning. So like I mentioned with the key terms down below. So those are just some like notes, key terms, words, just to get you started on like ideating on what to design. But that's the theme for graphic design, building community and growing together as designers. For UX, UI, and product design, a little bit different, but in this case, it's design a website or an app that will help connect the design community at your campus. So let us know, like, what's the problem statement at your campus? Is design relatively new, and does it need to be like promoted more at your campus? Or is it kind of like the situation that we have at UCLA where, there's a couple hubs here and there, but there's not really like a singular hub where like all designers go to and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and you kind of need to bring people together. Is the community like that, where it's more like hearsay, everything that you hear about or all the opportunities that are passed around, you kind of have to know the right people? Yes, just let us know what it's like at your campus, and then whatever problem statements that you come up with for your particular campus, design a website or an app to help bring people together and help solve it. Yeah, so, and then just to clarify for UX, UI, and product design, you guys don't have to include like sunflowers in your branding or like yellow or orange or whatever. That's totally up to you. That's solely for graphic design. But the key terms are relatively the same for UX, UI, and product design. Still community building, still learning about design and growing together, building up your skills, everything but the sunflowers part. Okay, before I continue, any questions on the prompts?
I have a question about the graphic design. I'm not really sure what it means. So it's just like a picture?
Yep, so anything that it's like very artsy, you can create it's like basically like a social media graphic. You can make like an infographic if you wish. You can just have like some like artistic piece or like digital illustration piece. And just the only restriction is it has to be that size.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very free, very like there's not many limitations to it. Just show us what you want to create. Any other questions before I continue? Okay, cool. Any other questions? Feel free to ping in chat or ping on Discord or email us. We will be on call and get back to you guys as quick as possible. All right, general rules. You guys saw this during like in the previous emails and during like the marketing blurbs for this event, but just to kind of go over them a little bit more. So you must register and submit your project with an EDU email. I do need to follow up with a couple people on this matter, but just it's not a big deal if you registered with like a @Gmail or whatnot. Just be sure to, when you submit your project, it's at @edu email, just so we know that you are actually a college student. You can work alone or in a pair, and our Discord channel is meant to help people kind of pair up and meet each other. So if you registered as a solo worker, but you want to work in a pair, it's totally okay to change that. Just be sure when you submit your work, you add all the correct information for both parties. But yeah, that can change throughout the week if you are meeting new people. You can use any software you want. So for this particular event, we'll be teaching a software called Figma, which is one of the more popular designing applications out there right now. But there's so many others. There's Adobe XD, there's Sketch. You can use Illustrator for graphic design, literally any software that you're comfortable with. And if you're just starting out and you're like, I have no idea what softwares to use in design, we'll be going the Figma route, just so everyone knows. But you're not restricted to that. You can use whatever softwares you want. We're not partnered with anyone. Please don't feel obligated that you have to use a certain platform over another. You won't get bonus points for using Figma over like Adobe XD, for example. It's whatever you're comfortable with and whatever is easiest for you to learn. This is for you to learn how to use softwares and for you to explore. So all on you. And then if you wish to have feedback, you're more than welcome to submit your project to us early. So we'll have like a feedback link, like I mentioned, with the feedback sessions later on this week. And you're more than welcome to check in earlier than that if you wish. If you're just talking about ideation or just want to kind of like talk through your thoughts, that's fine as well. And if you want feedback and you want to say like, oh, like design wise, does this seem like good design, or does this seem like I'm taking enough things into consideration or whatnot? We are here to help you with all that. So feel free to reach out to us whenever, if you just want feedback on your thoughts or projects or anything. And in this last point, like I said, you can switch tracks or partners until the submission deadline. Just be sure to submit your project with everyone's correct information. Same thing goes with tracks as well. If you want if you're kind of looking at your schedule right now, and then you think that maybe you want to do a graphic instead, maybe it better fits your schedule compared to like an actual prototype, that's okay too. Again, just submit with the correct information at the end of the week. And the submission link will be sent out Friday morning, like the final one. So just keep an eye on that. We'll send that out via email and Discord. All right. In terms of judging, here is what we are looking for each track. For graphic design, does your design exhibit the theme of the event clearly, or is it kind of like ballpark way in left field, and we can't really see like, the theme of like growing together and learning as a community? Think about your branding. So how does your design choices support the overall work that you create in terms of color palette, typography, style? Is it supporting your actual artwork? Is it supporting your vision through this graphic? Just be mindful. There's a lot of things that go into choosing things like colors and typography, formatting, styling, all these design elements. There's just a lot of thought that goes into it. So we just want to make sure that all of those elements support your final message through your design. And be aware of information hierarchy. So for those who don't know what information hierarchy is, it's basically how we see like a poster in order, right? So if you're looking at like a movie poster, what stands out to you first? besides like the imagery. Maybe like it's the title of the movie because it's in very large fonts. And then the next thing that you see might be like where it's being screened and like the times it's being screened, since it's at a smaller font. And then maybe like the next thing that you see is the credits. And you see like all the names of like everyone in like production or whatnot. So it's kind of like the same thing in graphic design, where it's like, okay, where do you want us to see first, or where do you want to draw our attention first? And then what do you want us to see next versus next and next and next? So that's basically what information hierarchy is. So just be aware of like, okay, like take a step back from your graphic design and what's catching everyone's eye first. And we're talking about community here. So that includes, we want to be diverse and inclusive of everyone and be representative of our designs in general, whether that be through accessible design or just being, careful with, say, choosing our color palettes. We don't want to do like red and green too much. Otherwise, for accessibility's sake, it's not going to be as easy for some users to experience your designs in the same way that other people do. So be mindful of, what imagery you're including and how it affects everyone else. Again, design is a user-centric topic. And so really want to consider what everyone else is thinking as they are looking at your work. And so diversity and inclusion is something that's really important to us as designers at ACM Design at UCLA. And it's something that we want to promote. And then final point, originality and creativity. So take your artistic mind, your artistic talents, and run with it. We want to see how you can kind of like turn this event topic into something that incorporates your thoughts and your thinking. And we want to see what amazing work that is from you. So those are pretty much the solid points for graphic design. UX, UI, and product design are kind of similar, but a bit more product centric. So a couple ones are, does your design tackle the problem statement? So is it meant to solve some sort of solution on your campus? Is it meant to connect people together, provide resources, do all of the above, provide mentorship perhaps? So just make it clear for us that, okay, your idea is tackling some sort of issue that you see at your campus. And then also think about your branding as well. What we like to say and what a lot of designers like to say is form follows function. So be sure that your ideas are meant to be working in the way that you want first, and every other design elements and aesthetic elements will follow after. Also, is it intuitive to use? Like, are we able to navigate through everything a bit easily? Do we need you guys there to kind of explain it to us, or can we figure it out on our own? Be aware of your users' needs as well. Is it something that like is what you're designing something that the community actually needs, or is it something that you think the community actually needs? Two very different things, and that's where markets research and testing comes into play. Also being aware that your designs are representative of the community around you, and then again, originality and creativity. So for UX, UI, and product design, don't worry about the number of frames that you need to create. Just design enough so that we get the idea of what you want to create. There's no like frame limit or frame minimum or whatever number that you have to reach to make it, like a formal prototype, but just have enough so that we can understand where you're going with this. So we don't want to burden you guys. It's for UC schools, it's week 6, still midterm season. I'm sure for semester school 2, you guys have your own worries as well. So we don't want to add on to that. So don't worry about like, oh, I need to hit 15 frames for this project. Nope, it's however much you are able to design. Again, this is beginner friendly. So just enough that we understand where you're going with, and that is fine. Okay, before we move on, any questions about these judging points? All right, again, and again, like if there are any other questions, feel free to ping them to us afterwards. All right, prizes. We'll have first, second place. We'll send out Amazon gift cards to the winner. So this is gift cards for each person in a pair. So if you're working solo and you get first prize, you'll get $25. If you're working, then you guys don't split the $25. Don't worry, we'll send you $25 each. And then we'll try to mail you some extra goodies as well. COVID, if it's COVID safe to do so, that's what we'll try to do. But this is pretty much kind of the layout of how we'll do prizes. So again, like in a pair, you're not splitting this. It's you guys get your own for each. And then this is also first, second place for each track too. So first place for graphic design and also first place for UX, UI, and product design will be separate as well. So a lot of money on our end to give out, and we hope you guys have fun with it. Okay, and then I just want to address some questions from registration. So it looks like from everyone who applied, you all are mostly beginners, a couple intermediate designers here. So everyone is competing together. The only way the competition is divided is between the two tracks. But for the most part, it looks like everyone is relatively on kind of like the same playing field. So again, yeah, it's just in the UX UI product track, everyone's together, everyone's competing together. And then graphic design, everyone's together there as well. The tracks are not being put against to each other. And then you guys are also not, your works are not being put against to each other. We have a rubric on our end. So it'll just be out of scores. And then we'll also post scores afterwards if we can. And then so you guys know like kind of like where you measure up, and you have quantitative stats to put on your resumes and your portfolios if you need. But yeah, there's no like intermediate or beginner level tiers, it's just everyone's together. All right, so with that being said, I will hand it soon to Brian, one of our officers at ACM Design, and he'll be talking about design processes. If you are a more intermediate designer or you're more familiar with design processes, this is pretty much the end of the kickoff event for you, but feel free to stay if you wish. This is mostly for beginners who are like, okay, I am interested in design, but how do I think like a designer? Like, what are things that I should take into consideration? Like, what's the typical workflow that I should be taking? And he'll cover everything that you need to, like all the steps you should be taking within both graphic design and product design. And then tomorrow, we'll also have our student speaker event. So two amazing designers here at UCLA. One is Colleen Lee. She not only is a part of ACM Design, but she is now president at another amazing design organization called Product Space. They do a lot of other things as well, but she worked mostly for product design, and she was also a product design intern at Salesforce. And then also Alex Yu, who is the graphics editor for Daily Bruin, which is a newspaper we have here on campus. And she's a UI designer over at another organization called Creative Labs as well. So two amazing designers. Feel free to come in with all of your questions. We tried to design some of the questions as if, you know, we had our user persona be one of you guys who's just getting started. So if there's anything else you want to add, we'll have like a questions section for the audience at the very end. So come ready to ask them whatever it is that's on your mind as you're navigating the world of design. Okay, before I hand it off to Brian to start the design process workshops, any other questions or concerns about the event, the schedule, logistics? Cool. All right. As always, we'll always be here to answer any questions. Just feel free to ping us. And then with that, I will hand it off to Brian. Brian, you should be able to share at this point.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Crystal.
Yep, all yours.
Okay. All right. Oh, not bad. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Brian. I'm a UX design officer. Sorry, I'm an officer at ACM UCLA Design, and I'm going to be presenting this workshop into the design process. So a few disclaimers before I start. I am more experienced within UX design itself, since many of the projects I've been working on are within UX design space. But with regards to like the entire design process as a whole, they're pretty similar. So I hope that I can like share my insights, and that could like both be applicable whether you're doing the UX design track or the graphic design track for this design-a-thon. So to begin with, let's start off with like a few definitions on these two different tracks. So with regards to graphic design is essentially the usage of different like visual communications. So you can say different visual media in order to transmit different messages, usually with some specific objective in mind. With UI and UX design, this is the process where we try to improve the quality of interaction between a user and the product through like the product's own interfaces. So you can usually see these in like app developments or through websites or through other web apps you can basically see throughout the internet. However, behind these two different disciplines of design, the overall design process is actually basically pretty much similar. If we have to summarize it in this one chart, I found this through Googling basically, but I think this basically sums up what most people think of when they think about the design process. So essentially you have to define the problem you're trying to design for, and then you try to collect information and brainstorm through that information to come up with some initial ideas. Then you develop on those ideas in order to like produce some very basic prototypes or some initial sketches, and then you present your ideas to others for feedback. And through that feedback, you will be able to improve your own design, and you will be able to see that this is essentially a whole iterative process. Design never really stops. We always keep innovating, iterating, improving upon our designs in order to make a better experience for the user or to create an even better graphic to help promote the brand you're trying to market to. So let's go to stage one first. Essentially, we have to, for design, I would say that like around 70% of the work actually comes with like your background information, like how would you want to approach this problem and the research you take to it. So the first step you want to do is you want to define the problem first. You want to understand why you're doing the design and what you're actually going to be designing. So when you want to design such a problem, you want to first maybe explore around like what current solutions are there, or you want to, for graphic design, you want to understand exactly what is the purpose of your graphic you're designing for. And this is usually detailed in something that's called in the industry that is called a creative brief, which basically details like different market, like what this graphic is still supposed to be used for, and like maybe different specifications if the client is like inclined to give you those. When you're also defining the problem, you also want to research the industry you're going to be designing into, and to research about other competitors so that you will know how to make your own design stand out. So one way to approach defining the problem is to use something called a how might we statement. So a how might we statement usually comes in the form of, as you can see here on the slides, we can probably have, so say we're exploring within the industry around like podcasts. From a user experience design perspective, we might be asking questions like, how can we make podcasts more voice assisted and tactile? Or how can we make searching for relevant parts more easier? For the graphic design perspective, we might be focusing on questions such as, how do we increase the awareness of this new podcast app that we're launching? Or how can we more specifically target this app towards millennials? So a how might we statement helps us define the problem we're trying to solve, or some user need that you're trying to address. But like, there is a Goldilocks policy here. You don't want this how might we question to be too broad, as in like, how might we make people happy, or how might we solve global warming or something like that. Or we don't want to make it too narrow, like how might we make some specific button blue, because we want our scope to be very important, such that we can accurately know what we're designing for and how to address different client or user needs. So moving on, we're going to move into the research stage of designing. So I'm going to do a little bit of a split here, because this is where graphic design and user experience design like sort of deviates. For user experience design, as the name suggests, the users are always very important, and that's why we must do research towards a user in order to figure out how do we create a best design for them. So user research teaches us about how the users, their behavior, goals, motivations, need, like everything we need to know about user. This is very important to know. And essentially what this research allows us to do is it allows us to build empathy for the users. We can understand what the users actually need and then we can actually design a product for them. So in order to do this, there are very common research methods, which includes user interviews, user surveys, and then we can collect the data from those user interviews and surveys into something we call affinity diagrams, which I'll explain later on. We can also collect research through focus groups. And finally, we can also conduct research through something we call usability testing. So what from all this research we've gathered, we also need to analyze such findings in order to basically distill down into several features that one might need to produce in our user experience, in our final design for such a product, which I'll explain later on. On the graphic design side of things, research here is actually less sort of important, but since most of the information you will actually need will come from the brief. However, you still need to do research here because this is where most of your inspiration is going to come from your graphic design. Essentially, your goals here in graphic design is trying to understand what your client, what your client's competitors, and what your target audience want and need. So on one hand, say you're designing for a client, you want to understand if there's any pre-existing brand guidelines that you have to follow for a client. For a client. Is there any company history or company history that you want to bring out in your designs, something like that? Or for your target audience, you want to maybe you're marketing towards say a Gen Z population. Maybe you need something, some other visuals in order for your design to stand out. So to reiterate, you're trying to find inspirations for your designs here. And in order to do that, you will basically be looking through a bunch of different graphics and also logos online. So usually what I would do is I would do it through Googling, on Pinterest, or on Dribbble. And these are all platforms which are very good at sharing designs of other people and also looking at different references. So after you collected all your research, you make sure you want to have lay it all out and also try to organize it in a way that makes sense to you. So for the user experience side of things, you want to organize your research into something what we call affinity diagrams, and that helps you organize your features that you have to design on later on. You also want to organize your research into something you want to do some sort of competitor analysis to see what your other competitors are doing and see how you can differentiate your product between different other competitors. You might also want to organize that into a way to produce something what we call user flows, which helps outline the flows of what your app is designing or what product you're trying to achieve, because that helps keep everything organized in a way. And finally, there's something what we call information architecture, which is similar to user flows, but essentially it's like a hierarchy where you can see different types of information along the way. So that basically helps you, again, keeps everything organized in a sense. On the graphics design side of things, what I would do is I would collect all my inspiration I found online and then put it in something what we call a mood board. Essentially, a mood board is like a collection of all your inspiration that helps get a feel for your design direction. So say maybe you collected a bunch of inspiration on creating this poster diagram or whatever. This mood board will help you decide what sort of tone you want to approach with your graphic design, or the color scheme you might want to use, or any other typography or other design terms that you might pop up in your head. Again, you also want to get a feel of your competitors, see how you can make your design stand out. And finally, you want to do something what we call thumbnailing, which is the process where you can quickly sketch out any ideas you have and put them on paper first. So moving on, when I was talking about a mood board, this might be something you might be doing. This is also not restricted to graphic design, by the way. User experience designers also sometimes use this to get, so say you're designing a new app, maybe you'll be using this to get a sense of what your design system might be like. But essentially, it's going to be a whole page of your inspo, and then maybe you can pick out stuff that you want to use in your designs. For affinity diagrams, this is more used on the user experience side of things. So essentially what it does is, say you conduct different user interviews or surveys, and then you gather user insights into that. You would first off put it down into post-it notes, or as you can see here, just some boxes around, some text around some boxes. And then we're going to try to organize them according to different categories that you need. So I'm taking this image from a government website, which is supposedly about how to improve health within, improving hospital work conditions, essentially. So as you can see, they divided their insights into different categories, and then that helps them organize their research and their insights conducted from like these user interviews and surveys. Next, then there's also on the user experience side of things. Then you might also then start creating a user flow. So if you're designing an app or some sort of product, user flow would be a very good place to start with, because for one, it helps you plan out all the features you might need for your final design. And it also helps make you notice if there's any edge cases that you haven't addressed yet. So say this is a email. So this is a basic calendar app. Maybe there's like a very specific edge case where like users want to do something crazy with the app. This user flow helps you put yourself in the mind of a user and like how you use the app. So if there's any edge cases you might encounter, then this is the place where you might consider adding a feature to help address that edge case. And finally, this is an information architecture, which was talking about previously. Essentially, it's just a very top-level view of your app itself. Again, it helps keep everything organized and also helps showcase like what information that is required within the app. And this gives you a very good list as to like what you actually need when you're designing an app or a product. So after you've done your research and you organize everything into like organized methods using the methods I talked about, then you will move on to actually sketching out your designs. So wireframing will be more specific towards user experience design. Essentially, there's a very specific term here that is called fidelity, and it refers to like the levels of details and functionality in your prototype. So there's usually around 3 tiers of wireframing. So for your low-fi wireframing, it helps essentially get any of your ideas down onto like the paper first. So as you can see here on this slide, you can see that it's a very rough sketch of like what a phone app launch screen or like home screen might look like. Essentially, you can delineate like any images or like any text you want to need with these boxes and crosses on it. So this gives you like a very rough feel of how the design layout should be. And then after you've done your low-fi wireframes, you might move on to mid-fi and high-fi wireframes. So essentially, what the difference here between the fidelity is like the level of details that you put into your designs. So you don't have to follow like a specific pattern for this. You can sometimes I just jump straight into like mid-fi or high-fi wireframes because time constraints and all that. But you would want to do wireframes first, because this helps give a very good sense of like how your design is going to come out in the end, and like also helps you organize like whatever thoughts you might have from your research onto like an actual design space. On the graphic design process side of things, you will have something what is called thumbnailing. So essentially, as you're putting whatever ideas you have in your head and just sketching them out on paper or like any iPad or whatever you have. So the pros of this is that it allows you for very quick iteration of many unique ideas that you have in your head, and you won't have to worry about them when you're designing the actual design itself when you're moving on to that stage. So the main advantages of this technique is that it helps you focus on what you're actually designing, so you don't have to worry about it when you're creating the actual design. It also gives you more freedom to play around with different styles without worrying about like specific techniques, such as like artistically, such as like perspective and all that. It also helps with artist block. So I don't know if you experienced this, but sometimes when I try to come up with like different graphic designs, I stumble because like I don't have a good idea. Sketching out your designs helps a lot because like, well, for one, it gets your mind running for a bit. And second, like you're already doing it. And then if you did a lot of thumbnail design sketches, you will have a sort of library to choose from. So you don't feel too pressured to make up with a fresh design on the spot. So on the final stage, assuming you already did your sketches or your wireframes, you're going to be moving on to prototyping. So for user experience design, prototyping is essentially you have created a final design of the app that is not functional right now, but you can showcase it through like different software. So what this does is that this allows for future testing of your product by prototyping your wireframes. So different tools that allow this will be like Adobe XD, Figma, InVision, and Sketch. These all will have prototype functions that will allow your designs to essentially come to life and help you and showcase like given users a good idea of how the app might actually work. And in order to do that, that will require user testing. So users will actually use your prototype, and you will usually observe them or like ask them questions while they're using the prototype to see if there's any usability issues while they're using the app. But essentially what you want to do for user testing is that you want to get feedback on how a user experience is with a product. And if any issues do occur, you want to fix those issues and keep iterating on your prototype. And that basically brings you back to the whole research part of the design process. So a big part of user experience design is that you want to keep iterating new prototypes and throw them off to users in order to check if there's any like usability problems. And this will be like a cyclical process. For graphic design, once you already have your sketches done, it will be time to actually put them onto like a more refined sort of sketch. So the tools you would use to do this would be usually Illustrator, Photoshop, or sometimes I would use Procreate. And these tools are the Adobe tools are free if you have a UCLA student license. I'm not too sure about other schools, but like hopefully you also get access to them. If not, there's also like free options if you Google a bit. But essentially, the main part of your this is that you also want to get feedback on your designs. Since you always be biased when you're viewing your work, it's always better to have like a second opinion to see what you missed out on, or like if your design direction is going good. And the way to get feedback will be to get feedback at around 10%, at 50%, or around, and at the 99% stages of your design. So what I mean by this is that when you're at 10%, you want to get feedback on your design with regards to its design direction. So maybe you already did a very rough sketch of like the design elements you might use in your graphic design. You will want to have like a second eye to look at your design and see like if the direction is going very well. At 50%, you should have some colors and like more specific design elements fully fleshed out already. So at this point, you also want to ask for feedback on your graphic design and to see like if these elements will match okay with the design, and like if it actually fits within the creative brief you were given or the design prompt you were given. And then finally, at the 99% stage of your design, this is usually when your design is basically almost done, but this is where more nitpicky feedback will be given. So like say some of your colors are off around here, or like maybe you should use a different type for your designs around here. So this part will be when you created a very almost fully fleshed out design and it's basically trying to make it to perfection. However, after you get feedback, it's usually not the case that you already get a perfect design out. So you always want to incorporate such feedback and then feed it back into your designs over and over again. So again, this is the cyclical part of the design process, and you try to keep iterating upon your new designs. And on that, that would basically be like the whole design process as a whole. And yeah, is there any questions that anyone in the audience for you will have to answer? Okay, if not, I also posted some resources here. So you can join our ACM design communities to get more feedback from other designers within ACM design. I also posted a link down here that has some reading materials if you want to know more about like more specific kinds of design processes. And down there will be like links to like access different tools around to access different tools we require for designing the whole for the designathon. And yeah, I think I'll hand it off back to Krista for now.
We'll send these slides out in email and on Discord as well. Hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you guys have a better idea of how to get started with this event. Super excited with what you guys have to offer and what works you guys will be able to present at the end of the week. And good luck. We'll see you guys tomorrow.